What day is it today? It could be any day that you're watching this or listening to it. And our intention is for you to get a lot from this. And the topic today is about marketing and that great subject, creating inquiries, leads, basically conversations that you can have with your ideal person that you want to talk to, that you can have an impact on, and they can have an impact on your business. And so what a great subject, because I don't think there's a person really on LinkedIn who this isn't relevant to, and we're going live onto LinkedIn now. But if you're watching this back, thank you very much for joining us on one of our podcast channels or on YouTube, or indeed you might be one of the BIP 100 members watching it through our app. So we're going to be introducing you to Nick Griffith, who is he's a marketing expert, but he is completely committed to helping you to get more inquiries, create more conversations for you and your business. And it is something that is such an important topic, and it is one of Thomas's and my hot buttons in life, because we support a lot of people in business, a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's amazing how people aren't necessarily putting the right things in place to create the right type of conversations. And Thomas, what do conversations lead to?
Conversations create transactions. Tony Cliff.
There you are. That was a guru from Thomas's past that said that to him. I can't remember what year that was, Thomas.
Oh, it's a long time ago, 30 years, at least 30 years.
At least 30 years ago. So, you know, there's a lot goes on social media. We feel like we're having conversations. We feel like that we've got a like or a share, and that might be an inquiry, but it's not until you properly create the right mechanism for someone to say, I am really keen. So a minute, but first of all, let me give some context, because you may have never listened to a BIP chat before. BIP stands for Business is Personal, and it is a belief and a philosophy that Thomas and I have always had through our entire careers, and our careers span about 40 years, so that's 80 years together. And it is personal. And anybody that says to you, as they said to me, Penny, it's not personal, it's just business. Well, that was a gift to me, because it set me on a path to convince the world that business is personal. And so we have created a community called BIP 100, and that's where we work extremely hard over the last 3 years to find really good experts in their field. And by doing that, our network on LinkedIn and beyond can contact us and say, do you know anybody who can? And most of the time within our community, we do. We still have a few places. So if anybody's interested in that, we'd love to hear from you. We say that we have the diversity of expertise, the commonality of kindness. So our experts are good human beings. They understand what it takes to be a community member. And when you have those values, which we also have coined the phrase being in a super pack, as opposed to being a lone wolf or a pack animal. If you want somebody with those qualities, they're going to have the quality of generosity and kindness, which you're looking for a supplier, you're not just looking for an expert who's got the skills. You want those soft values as well. So that's a little bit about BIP Chat. Thomas and I run this together. He's very, very good to me, Thomas, because as a wife, he tends to let me have all the noise, all the words. So you'll see every so often his mouth will open and he'll be trying to say something and won't even notice. So I always look out for that. So first of all, Nick, so you run, I'm going to say the URL so that anybody who's listening might curiously look up digitalmarketingpartnership.com. And they might be you on LinkedIn. So look up Nick Griffith. So that's Griffith, Griffith. So not
no
Griffith.
S.
No S.
Yes.
So Griffith. So look up Nick. He loves to hear from people. And in fact, he's also said, if you want to have a chat, Nick at digitalmarketingpartnership.com. And I will be repeating this at the end of the show as well. Now, we know Nick because it was actually one of our members who recommended Nick to us as an expert, because she uses Nick as an expert in her business to help her increase her inquiries. Now, that's always a good way to know that somebody's got an expertise, if somebody's willing to refer. And we've got to know Nick. We've met him many, many times. We've seen him in action. We've seen him running webinars. So we're very confident you're going to get some good information from him. So
and
Nick
is a lovely chap.
There you go.
Thank you.
He's definitely a GHB, a good human being.
Well, I double vouch back. Penny and Thomas, they are tirelessly kids. to making sure the BIP community works seamlessly. And between the two of them, they seem to be operating 24/7 in my world, but certainly they are very, very, very good.
Oh, we do. Well, that's nice. We do love our work, and anybody that loves their work.
Nick, it's very hard keeping up with 100 people, I can tell you.
I find that sometimes hard, and keeping up with one can be hard work. So I know that is, which is why I take my hat off to both of you for keeping that machine going, because it is personal and it's working.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you for that.
Well, it's good in an AI world, which we're going to talk about. We've got to bring our hearts into it, and so Thomas and I are very passionate about what we do. So, Nick, you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom and experience about marketing, but this slice of marketing that you have decided to really focus on, how to help people get inquiries. Tell us a little bit more about your journey to that, and a little bit more. Just expand on that.
I guess the very short version, Penny, and very much thank you for hosting me on this podcast and you here today. Is over 20 years I've worked as a marketing consultant, digital marketing consultant for businesses, and one of those areas that really sort of bugged me was the amount of leads that would get wasted by you might work hard to get traffic to a web page or traffic to a landing page or people to an event. Whatever it was, most people go away disengaged. And I think we just accepted that, 95, 90%, whatever that number is that might visit the website, they leave without making an inquiry, they leave without any kind of further action. That whole word engagement, I think we just refuse to accept that as the norm. So what are the best tools for engagement? And I found that quizzes and scorecards, they really step up that game of engagements. And a lot of people, what they're really trying to do in the first instance is have a conversation. So some of those questions can be taken from that chat, put into a scorecard and quiz, create some value around it, save some time for both the host and the inquiry, and make sure you're actually a good match for each other. So
nice.
That's really where I'm coming from. If most businesses have either set up what they think is a quiz, but it's a questionnaire, it's a one track, give me all your answers, I'm going to make sure you've got enough money to buy my stuff. That's not a quiz. Quiz is interaction, quiz is engagement. Scorecard is a type of quiz, and there are other types of quiz, which is why I say quizzes and scorecard interchangeably. And I like to work with businesses to put that mechanism in place so that they're making the most of all the tools that are out there. Quite simple. So
I really
do. Too many years of seeing people waste. I mean, I've done joint ventures in the past where people have sent mutual traffic to each other, and the conversion rate was 1 or 2%. I'm trying to aim for 5 to 10% or more.
Even big brands, Nick, they're pretty dreadful at follow-up, aren't they?
Sometimes it doesn't exist, and sometimes it's, and I would fully put my hands up and say, in the early stages of the marketing career, did they just send one size fits all messages back to people? Of course we did, because it was quicker to set up a follow-up campaign or something which wasn't targeted, it wasn't personalized, it wasn't segmented. But a quiz, even if you segmented into, there's 1 or 2 or 3 types of potential lead coming in, or even it's a man or it's a woman, something very, very simple can really personalize and make sure you're getting your marketing, your copy, your imagery, and your follow-up on point versus it's just one size fits all.
I mean, I can endorse it because I have used a system like this. And also, one element of it that I really like when in this personalization of the way that you're going to communicate with someone and gaining their feedback through a quiz or a scorecard is actually when I have all their information in front of me and I do go through to having a call to talk about the results or whatever, I've already done a huge amount of diagnosis of their challenges and I have 42 questions on my scorecard. And there will always be at least 10 pain points in there that I can really hone in on and talk to them about and give them value either on that call, or say to them, you know, can I help you in another way, like join our community or whatever. So yeah, can you give us some examples like that? Because I know you help people come up with this and create this.
Yeah, tell us what questions work best, Nick.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, don't ask open questions. Okay, you know,
No.
off the bat, this isn't a big piece of prose. You know, one of my objectives, KPIs, is to have something that people can complete within 3 minutes. And just to kind of qualify that, a quiz or a scorecard doesn't have to be just purely for lead generation. It can also be for lead engagement. And a good example of that is a 4-question quiz I've put into a Harley Street doctor's practice. So the actual lead arrives through Google Ads. It's already done to find a free consultation. The quiz then engages them immediately as part of the kind of immediate follow-up process to find out a little bit more about their symptoms and give them an early diagnosis, which is value for them. But for the business point of view, it's also qualifying them into how quickly they want treatment. Hugely valuable from a follow-up perspective. So yes, there's one simple example from a medical perspective. I find any service-based business, there's a real opportunity. Coaching, you know, there's a business coach and he's saying, which area of your business is holding back your profitability and growth? And you may think, oh, I think it's this, but is that really true? Is that really, you know, am I really on point here? Am I got the right sort of perspective? And actual fact, a lot of businesses, they think they know the answer. Maybe that's what's holding them back. So it's going through a measuring and getting them to be honest with themselves and give them a bit more insight. So another technique I like to use with questions is helping people answer them. You know, don't make it complicated. Don't make them leave your quiz process halfway through. Like, what was your last month's, you know, figures on conversions on social media? They're not going to necessarily know that off the top of their head. You know, so go away, leave the platform. We've lost them. So you might sort of make it you know, what are your average website visitors a month? Is it 1 to 10,000? Is it 10,000 to 100,000? Is it 100,000 to 1 million? They're going to have an idea of that by making it an easier to answer question. And so I use that in broad ranges to make it something. You know, I'm not saying, is it 1 to 10? Is it 10 to 20? Is it 20 to 30? It's too narrow in the answers. And I think that's a good way to help people answer the questions quickly. You're not trying to do an exact diagnosis here. You're trying to do a high level engagement to sort of get a preliminary conversation started, just like you said, Penny, where you can follow up with some pain points. Another technique I like to use in answers to give people options is maybe give never more than 4 or 5 options. It's just too much information to take in. But you might ask them, which statement best describes how you're doing something? And it's not just a mathematical measuring exercise. It's a qualitative question, not a quantitative question, if that makes sense. So you might go, oh yeah, that sounds like me, yes. And you might say, which one most closely matches you? Not which is the exact match. Try and make it easy for them. And a lot of the value I like to add is going back into analytics, is looking at any questions that's, you know, once you've created it and not performing at their best, and refining that to, again, make it easier to answer.
And there must
Nick,
be
can I, sorry.
Please.
When do you use a scorecard and when do you use a quiz? Because I know you're using the words interchangeably, but people don't necessarily know the difference between deploying a quiz and deploying a scorecard. Is it? How do you choose which one to deploy for each product or service?
You know what? I think in some ways, the actual the scorecard example is a great measuring tool. You know, it's something that, you know, is going to have a categories section. It's going to have a number at the end of it. It's giving somebody a percentage, you know, or it might giving somebody which area is performing in their business or, you know, in their health or something worst, you know, and it's also going to give you a score across other areas. So it might actually have 4 or 5 categories and show you that's 20%, that's 40%, that's 60%, that's 80%. So that is giving you a broader sort of output, whereas a quiz, it's almost like a single track answer, a yes, no, what type of personality are you? Well, I'm a supporter if I went and did the wealth dynamics quiz. It's not telling me.
One is fun and one is numbers.
One is a single track answer and one is numbers. But yes, it can be a fun quiz. It doesn't have to be fun, in the sense of it's just it's it can, or you want them to be engaging and easy to answer. But a lot of people do use the quiz format to sort of go, what's your biggest, what's your golf swing killer? What's your killer part of your golf swing? You're like, I don't know. And I'm thinking of American quizzes that have been part of my example and influence here. And they don't know what they don't want to know whether it's their grip or their type of golf club is the problem. They're just like, are you a hooker? Are you a kind of a this? Are you a that? And then it goes into, okay, well, that's your biggest problem. Here's a solution for you, kind of thing. So it's like a one-shot output, whereas a scorecard is a more detailed and more complex output, which also, as Penny said, gives you more entry points to the conversation, whereas the quiz might lead you straight into a product. So it might actually say, if your killer swing is this, here's a product, and you might fully automate that process so it goes straight into a product purchase, versus a scorecard, which is, we're looking at trying to engage into probably a phone call or a conversation as part of the next step.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I imagine when people come to you, ultimately, most people will be looking for a transaction at the end of this. They're hoping that at some point, somebody's going to become a customer. You're creating conversation.
Yes.
To become a customer. But the quiz or the scorecard mustn't come across too transactional, that it's got to, I always feel that it needs to add some value for somebody to put in 30 seconds or even 5 minutes of their life into this. They need some value back from it, something. Is there a way of them getting instant value back from all the time they put in?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that for me is the huge difference between a questionnaire and a quiz. One of them is, imagine a one-way road to me. A quiz is just be two-way. So, for example, I created one for a gym, health club, and it was to obviously bring in and attract new potential members. But it was like, what's holding back your fitness? And it's like, is it your diet? Is it your exercise regime? Is it your mental state? Is it that? And so that curiosity, human beings are naturally curious. And what's going on over there? Can I find a little bit more about me? That kind of mindset. Mm. So if that gym is able to give that person a bit of insight, oh, you know what? I thought it was my diet. Actually, it's my mindset that's all wrong, that's holding back my fitness goals here. And they may never join the gym, but you've given them some value. Yeah. And they may share that with a friend. Remember the shareability of a quiz versus some of my, 100-page PDFs that people said, look, oh, here's my life's work as a download. Have I read them? No. Will I ever read it? No. It's trying to wrap that up into something that could be digested in 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, when I implemented mine, I wrote a big report that so there were 7 categories around that I was diagnosing around their business health. And then they got a score out of each one. And the ones that were low, they would get a whole report on how to improve that score. And it was a 42-page report. And it was brilliant because once I wrote the report knew how to pull out the right thing. The system, very clever, knew how to pull out the right thing and send a bespoke report to everybody.
Absolutely.
But, it was huge, but I don't think anybody really read it. And so I ended up
probably not
down to a screenshot. Basically.
Yes. So one of the platforms I use, Score App, is it creates some very easy to digest graphics. Whether it's a pie chart that shows something, it's something that we're all quite familiar with. It's not pages and pages and pages of content, but you can link into. If you had a 100-page report, but only 20% of it was relevant to the person, you could, just like you said, Penny, what if it was 42 down to 10, or 5 for the person, exactly. And the rest of it is it's sort of personalized at the stage of this is most relevant to you. And in that health club example, I encourage them to do tips for high, medium, and low score based on their score. So
Yes.
if you're flying high with exercise, do you really need to be told go and join a gym or go and
Yeah,
get up in the
exactly.
morning? And you don't. You want something a bit more advanced. And then
Yeah.
you're thinking, this is a good brand. It's actually helped me
Yeah.
move the dial.
Yeah. 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 Go for it,
Thomas,
Thomas.
Thomas has got his hand up.
He's got his hand up.
So-
Good boy.
So you two are talking all the time about people filling in a quiz or filling in a scorecard. What I'd like to know is, how do you get people there in order to fill it in the first place? What works best? Is it email? Is it social media? Is it Google Ads? Is it SEO? Is it this platform? Is it that platform? There's so many choices of ways to get people to complete something. Brutal question. What's your top 3 of what works best to fill in a quiz or fill in a questionnaire? Have you got an ABC?
What you mean, getting the
Well,
traffic to the site for
Getting
it?
the traffic, getting someone to fill something in. How do you, what works best?
Well, okay. So imagine as part of an quiz ecosystem, there is a quiz landing page, which in of itself, is here are people that have done the quiz. There's some value here. This is what you get out of the quiz. Here's a sample of what you get at the end. So if we're talking about getting people to that page itself, I think a lot of people leave I think opportunity on the table. So something as simple as a website banner on your homepage or on your assets out there, which is either a banner or pop-ups can be used in different ways. Not everyone's favorite thing is a pop-up in this world. It can be when you're about to close the page. Oh, I've had enough of this and leaving. Pop-ups can be created in different formats. So I think that is using your existing real estate. And that's a good one. Anyone that's doing podcasts, we're talking here, you've got social handles, putting that URL link again into your social channels at the back of a book. You've read a book and people think, oh yeah, that was a really good book. Now what do I do? Oh, right, I can go and test myself against some of the chapters in this book. Fantastic. So obviously you can email, you can do, you're asking me for top 3 here, Thomas. I think using the free assets that you're already using, I think that is always going to be one of the best places. And I'm going to give you one of my favorites is the thank you pages in your business. So whenever someone subscribes to a newsletter or joins a podcast or makes a purchase or any single part of your business where you click to confirm, and generally people leave it as a vanilla out of the box. Thanks for registering. Come and join us. We'll see you next week. We'll do this. How about before you get there, how about do this? And you have a little banner, a little caption, which then encourages people to get started before the podcast, before the webinar, before the live events. So the thank you page is a free piece of real estate. Think about the person that's visiting that. They are already engaged. How about stepping up that engagement so they're super engaged? Definitely. Just a quick one on the paid ads and other things like this. I think that depending on the value of the quiz and the value of your brand, it may be a second step option versus a first step option. It costs money. It costs clicks. There's, depending on how good that page is converting, what you don't want to do is see spending many tens or many amounts of money for people just to complete the quiz. So, maybe for your business, distributing a voucher is probably the most attractive thing, or something like that, or something as the initial advert. And that's what we've done with various businesses. As soon as they've engaged, then we send them the quiz to deepen and get them ready for the call. So yes.
So your top 3 are the existing real estate, all the thank you pages,
real estate, the thank you pages, and obviously your network, your social page, social media posts. You've done someone's done a quiz and they've got an output from that, and you might choose to share. Oh, did you know that 75% of our audience, their number one problem is this? How did you find that out? Actually, here's a quiz. You can go and find out where you stand in that subsequence. So existing real estate, all the thank you pages, and definitely the social media posts, and your existing contact list, your existing list of prospects that never turned into customers. It's go and use what's already in your back pocket before you come to spend money to accumulate more.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
What's really clear here is that, while actually the marketing of this scorecard is the piece that you know really well, how the whole traffic around it, how to get the people to this point is obviously a key part of what you do. Am I right in that?
It is. I think a quiz, if I was going to use the sort of a metaphor, a quiz is a booster, it's a turbo on an engine. The engine is your business, your existing funnel. What you've already created is your assets to nurture people in. What you're trying to do is increase the conversion rate of what's going through that funnel. That's your turbo. And I guess it's the engineer in me going, here's an engine, put something on top of that, that's the turbo. But like anything, without any fuel, without any promotion, there's nothing going through the turbo, there's nothing going through the engine. So yes, there's definitely one of the things I've got experience of is doing that. And I guess the sort of a 3+1, Thomas, for fraud, I like the free traffic sources, joint ventures, finding people where there's a mutual win-win, where they go, give us something to send, where they're going to send people to. They could send them to your most recent podcast, they could send them to join a webinar, but maybe something that gives them instant gratification is right for that audience. And a quiz or scorecard can fit very neatly in to a partner going, I've got a list of 10,000, give them something to send before we the webinar's next week. But hi, this is Penny, this is Thomas. Before we get to the call, why don't you find out what your score is in business and find out what your where your greatest area of opportunity is for improving your profitability, your growth, or your might be networking centric, but it suits the business.
Very, very good. I mean, I absolutely love the concept of this, and I am the classic person, we've talked about this, that created mine and then it just sat on my website and I didn't do anything.
You're not alone, Penny. Most people, they get started. It's that project on that to-do list. It sits there for months. And people then knock on my door and go, Nick, can you help us get it over the line, and then own it for us so that it can be out of our minds and we can just have that monthly update, which is why I do the done for you service.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's Thomas putting his hand up. Was that say you want the done for you service? Thomas, when we got married, Thomas said, I am not a DIY, I'm a BIY, a buy it yourself. So yeah, I think there are too many people now who think that they can learn everything. They've got their expertise and then they think they can learn everything around the outside that's going to help their business grow. And it is impossible. You need really good experts, and and the return on that expertise is always enormous.
Yeah,
so I think
that's true.
It really is important. I think that I like the fact that people say, just give us a monthly update, just give us the leads, give us the inquiries, give us an update on how it's going. But it's over to you, Nick. You know what you're doing.
And on top of that, they kind of go, when Thomas is, they say, and Nick, if there were 3 things, I'd like to say, well, there were 3 things I'd prove on your quiz from last month. Don't wait to be asked the question by the business owner. Put that in as part of the data are moving, and then they've got the comparable with other quizzes and scorecards to see what's working. For example, a video that sits on the landing page and on the thank you page works better. We know that, but if people haven't implemented it, it's a suggestion that I make. It's here's the data, here are your top 3 summaries. Fine, I'm a business owner, I'm a busy person, I don't need all the detail, but I will say yes to implementing those, Nick. Go. And they're ready for next month. Let's look at the data. Has it made a difference? Off we go.
Yeah. Stay in your lane. That's the important thing when you're in business. Stay in the lane.
Yes.
Good at that. Thomas, I thought you were waving to me, but you want to say something.
Yeah, Nick, can I ask you the dreaded AI question?
Oh, yes.
So we've got AI coming into all of our lives with Google Bar, ChatGPT, scorecard.ai. Everyone's going AI mad. Have we reached the point yet where
I'm redundant?
You can take a website, feed it into something else, and it'll just write your whole questionnaire for you? Are we at that point yet, or is it still a highly personal experience?
I think 80% of what you've just said there, yes, you can do something. And one of the integrations recently from Score App is it creates simple questions, yes, no answers. It doesn't go into layers of granularity. And even, and I'm sure even the founder of Score App, Daniel, and I asked him about this, he said, it bakes the cake. Someone needs to put the icing on top in the decoration. Yes. So yes,
Oh, that's
suddenly
good.
80% of your workload has been done. And maybe in the AI process, it creates some better ideas and questions and categories that you in that fuzzy Tuesday afternoon when you're trying to bash it out in a day, it's broadened your horizons. And I used AI in one example with a client, which was we between us understood the business, and ChatGPT or something, a tool like that could certainly help you accelerate. Okay, what are the key areas here? But what we did was we did question design, and then I asked it for 3 variants of each question. And then I put them back to the clients and said, which is your favorite? Interestingly, I hadn't told them by that stage I was using AI to generate the 3 variants. It was a test to see what worked and what reaction. 50% were the first variant, which was me, and the other 50% they chose were the AI versions of the first version. So I was using it to create a bit more diversity in language and what we were doing. And I would use that process again with other clients, which is it creates more variations in there. The personalization options are very important, otherwise it will come out vanilla and out of the box. And I think as AI develops, people will be watching for that, just as we know a bot's chatting to us over something which is engaged on a website. As soon as we smell that, that's a disengagement versus an engagement.
Yeah, very, very true.
Is AI more about saving time or being more creative? What's the leaning? Is
It's
it
both.
It's both.
It's both of those. Yes, absolutely. You could create a first draft of something which is a framework in minutes versus what might have taken you a month's worth of a couple of Zoom calls and a couple of meetings and a first draft and a Google document and a shared back and forth. You can suddenly have that next month to dive, and I would use it at this sort of time. Right, well, let's create what launch content we're going to create for this. How are we going to use that time wisely? We haven't had to sit here going through basic nuts and bolts. What we want to do is have a segmented launch based off of that's a social channel, that's a podcast, and that's our webinar. So actually, we've got 3 different bits of copy that we've used that month for to create something that's going to have a greater impact on traffic once the quiz is built. We haven't wasted that month sitting there trying to grind out the questions and the answers. So you can reallocate your time in a better way. So
this is making you more productive and more creative.
Yes.
So this is a real positive boost, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I would be the first to admit one of the implications before I understood AI a bit more, ChatGPT, January, what I'm thinking, will it make me redundant in that process? But no, someone still has to put the icing on the cake. And we've all gone into a supermarket and thought, well, actually, there's your chocolate cake. But what looks better, that with suddenly the nice fondant icing with the personalized decoration? Well, yes, you know what? If you say what a simple chocolate cake, you can have a simple chocolate cake. But yes, that's not going to generate you your best results. And that's why you're investing in it.
So, Penny, this is a little bit, Nick's statements sound a little bit like Martin Ector's Superhuman.
It does, isn't it?
80% is done by the machine, and then the superhuman comes in and does the final 5th.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting looking across all of the sectors, because Martin Ector talks about, lawyers and accountants, them all being, made pretty much redundant by AI. However, there's always going to have to be the superhuman that checks the work and improves it. Because of their innate knowledge, and also I think the connection between the heart and the brain, which is really important in anything. So I think this has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I 100% endorse the strategy that you come up with.
Thank you.
This is so it's any sector. It's whether you're selling a product, it's about engagement, it's about showing that you are interested, it's about helping someone self-diagnose a bit. It's it really is an important aspect now, I think, of creating inquiries. So I hope anybody that's watched this has really, or listened to it, if you're walking the dog, in the car, or whatever.
Wherever you are.
Wherever you are, I hope it's added some value and created some curiosity. And as we said at the top of the show, Nick is a really good guy. He's worth having an interesting conversation with about whether or not you're creating enough conversations in your business, and not just loads of conversations. You want to create the correct conversations. You want to know that when somebody's contacting you, they're sort of partially qualified. They're properly interested in taking the business that you have to another level with them. So yeah, so remember how you can find
it is.
Say that
I think
again.
the other thing on that, it is, and I think you've just said that you're actually passing on the sort of time saving to the leads, to the new inquiry. You're not sitting there for the first 15 minutes of a Zoom call or something we're trying to, or even a meeting, trying to grind out some Q&A to understand a bit more about their business. You actually got, as you said, a number of data points to start with, and you can focus on solution mode, value mode, seeding what you do as a service or what your product is, and using their half-hour call with you really wisely versus 15 minutes of, right, okay, well, we've got your name and your email and we know your business name, and let's find out a bit more about where your pain points are and where your problems might be.
Yeah, I mean, 70% of the people that answer my one, 70% of people say that they are lonely in business. Immediately we hear that. Right. We then focus on the fact that, obviously being in a community as opposed to being part of a network or being a lone wolf makes a big difference. And that in itself helps to qualify us into someone, they're open enough to realize it about themselves and they've got that self-awareness, and that is a need that we want to solve. And so, yeah, I think, and then it's really interesting to ask somebody to take the questionnaire again a few months later and see how the bar has shifted because of the way that how
the dial has improved. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a really good business tool, not, overall. So it doesn't just start and end with the inquiry. It can be taken a lot further into the business and your values around supporting people. So I think it's been
Nick, that leads me to the question: are you happier since you joined BIP?
Oh, Thomas.
Look at this smile.
Look at that.
That's a yes, Thomas and Penny. No, I'm out here in the 300-year-old barn in Wiltshire. I've removed myself from city life, and I've looked out there. I mean, I don't see a human being in sight. So yes, I could have set myself up to be lonely out here, but it's quite the opposite because it came at the same time in my life to join BIP and to move home, and I've never felt more engaged and part of a community since doing that. So it was the right time and the right call. That came together.
Well,
and
there you are. And that again, back to what you do, Nick, is what you're actually trying to qualify when you're trying to engage with a new potential customer. So I think that's a really good place to finish this. Remember to contact Nick on LinkedIn, Nick Griffith. So no S on the end, GRIFFITH.
And I'd love to have the LinkedIn is actually Nick R. Griffith. It's linkedin.com, and the actual URL is Nick R. Griffith, because there's a few Nick Griffiths in the world, even though there's rare without the S.
Contact Thomas and I, and we'll connect you to Nick with our pleasure. Or you can look up his website, digitalmarketingpartnership.com. So yeah, get in touch with Nick. I hope we've stirred you into some new thinking around how you can create some conversations in your business. And Nick, thank you so much for your time today. We've loved this.
Thank you.
We are going to love having this as an asset in our podcast for us to point people to.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Thomas. Thank